Thank you all so much. I had a conversation with Doug Kraft before service. Oh, yes. I'll get to this in a moment. But I had a conversation with Doug Kraft before service, and he said, with all of your experience, do you still get nervous? And I said, oh, yes. I get very nervous, and it seems to be proportionate to how prepared I am. The more prepared I am, the more nervous I am. I don't know what that means yet. But then Carol told me before service, she stopped me, gave me a hug, and she said, you know we all love you, don't you? And I said, I couldn't do this if you all didn't. So thank you so much for accepting me, for loving me. So this is my beautiful family. You all, of course, know me. You know Amy. And most of you at this point know my beautiful daughter, Ellie, or at least know about her through the stories that I've shared in my talks here. I joked with someone recently that as a gift to me for Father's Day, Ellie would be doing the talk today. And that's not entirely inaccurate. Reverend Eileen talked last week about how the world is our classroom. And in the classroom of my life, Ellie is my homeroom teacher. We all know that everyone we interact with on this journey is here to teach us something about our divinity, and I have been blessed to spend almost every day of the last 3.5 years with this little ball of light. I've gotten to live our unity principles right alongside her and see them come forth through her, and it is my joy to share some of my experience with you today. Now, all of the usual fatherly cliches apply to me. I am no exception to the rule. She's the light of my life. She's daddy's little girl. She knows she has me wrapped around her finger. And you might just say I'm a little bit attached. But this parenthood, fatherhood, is such a different experience than other human experiences of attachment because it begins from a space of unconditional love. I can say from my 3-year experience that if your parents ever told you, you'll never know how much we love you until you have a child of your own, it's true. There are no words that can bring you, the child, into that specific experience without being in it yourself. And in that way, it's much like the experience that we're calling others to join us in here at Unity of Naples and other spiritual centers. We can do our very best to describe being in the present moment and living as love, but ultimately what we're trying to do is to create a safe space where others can come in and have their own experience of spirituality. It's not enough to talk about it. To know God is to experience God in the same way that to know the love a parent has for their child must be experienced to be fully understood and felt. And of course, I'm using this example because it's Father's Day. But I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that while today can be a very happy celebration for many, it can also be a very difficult time for many. If you had a troubled relationship with either of your parents, or maybe no relationship at all, or maybe your father has passed and he's no longer here with us, or maybe you are a parent and a set of difficult life circumstances made that experience challenging for you or your child, whatever your experience, whatever your journey, please know that this message is for you. We're going to be talking about relationship in 2 different ways. We're going to be looking at holy relationships, and as I provide examples based on my experience with my wife and daughter, I invite you to see yourself in my story by reflecting on those you love the most, those you care for unconditionally, maybe someone you look up to, someone who's had a positive impact on your life. This message also applies to our relationship to our creative experiences, things like writing a story or a poem or a song, painting a portrait, birthing an idea that becomes a successful business. Like parenthood, these are experiences of exercising our creative power and must be experienced to be fully understood. Our spiritual tool today is empowerment, how our creative experiences lead to self-empowerment and how the empowered self is equipped to then help empower others. I want to look at the holy relationships in our life and how they can act as pointers to how we are meant to love everyone. Sounds good? Yes? But before we continue, no Father's Day message given by an actual father would be complete without a few dad jokes. Dad jokes were a regular part of my father's vocabulary. Me and my brothers and sisters would always roll our eyes, but if I'm honest, I've always found this kind of humor comforting. And as I've grown up, I've found myself laughing right along, if not still rolling my eyes a little bit. So, Dad, these are for you. So, what is a dad joke? The general rule of thumb is this: if instead of laughing, it makes you groan, it's probably a dad joke. They are generally puns or a play on words. So, here are a few puns that gave me the giggles. I only believe 12.5% of the Bible. I am an eighth theist. My daughter told me she doesn't understand cloning. I said, that makes two of us. I accidentally glued my thumb to my forefinger, but don't worry, it looks like everything's going to be okay. I have to get a few music-themed ones in here. Why is Billy Joel's laundry still wet? He didn't start the dryer. And this one is for our disco ladies from karaoke night last night. This is the last one. Last night, I had a nightmare. The disco music was making a comeback. At first, I was afraid. I was petrified. Thank you for laughing. I told Brian, thank you. I told Brian Jones last week when he told me he wasn't going to be here, I said, no, I need you on the drums to fill the silence that might follow my corny dad jokes. Well, we make do, and they are funny, right? So the song that CL and I just shared with you, Extraordinary Magic by Ben Rector, is the first song I listened to after Ellie was born. For those who don't know, she was born 10 weeks early, 2 pounds, 4 ounces. And in my preparation for fatherhood, I didn't yet know that a child could be born 10 weeks early with a very high likelihood of survival. Amy had developed preeclampsia, a form of high blood pressure during pregnancy, and doctors attempted to manage her condition for 24 hours before determining that for her sake and for the sake of our child, Ellie was going to be making her grand entrance a little earlier than we expected. So the doctors told me Ellie was going to be fine. And of course, in my heart, I knew this. I knew that whatever journey lay ahead for us, that all would be truly well. But in this very physical, very tangible experience I was having, part of me did think, you're just telling me that. You're supposed to tell me she's going to be fine to keep me at ease, but you don't know that. Well, through the next couple of hours, through some research online, and particularly through an outpouring of messages from friends of mine who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who were preemies themselves, I would come to learn that the doctors actually did know that she was going to be fine. The technology that exists to support preterm growth and life is an example of miracles in our world today, and I got to witness that firsthand. It was, I think, a year, maybe even 2 years later, that Amy and I would speak candidly about our experiences in the hospital that night. Amy asked me, at any point that night, did you think I was going to die? And I didn't hesitate. I said no. Mentally and outwardly, my concern was for Ellie because I did know that Amy was going to be fine. I just knew it. I mean, she's kind of amazing, right? She's a strong woman. She comes from a family of strong women, and if she forgot that, she had me there to remind her. And I told her this. I shared this with her. I said I was focused on the possibility of losing Ellie. And Amy shared, she said, oh, wow, Amy, had no doubts that Ellie was going to be fine, but I was concerned with getting through the experience myself. And I had the thought, I thought, maybe these two seemingly conflicting energies just canceled each other out. And we know that there's some truth to that in the way that our ideas inform our circumstances. But I'll admit, as I've grown on my spiritual walk, I've wondered how I've been able to get through some murky thinking relatively unscathed. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore said that thoughts are things that crystallize into habit and solidify into circumstances. And I've been through so many ordeals in my life that turned out always so much better than my ego mind anticipated, that I've come out the other side and asked myself, how did my worst fears not become my experience? Has anyone ever felt this way before? If not, we need to hang out. While the answer is hard to express, part of it really comes down to how our spiritual practice is training not just our day-to-day thinking, but also our subconscious thought. In Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters, she says, whatever has been impressed upon our souls will work out in our bodies and affairs. We have the power to change our soul's impressions, our subconscious, through the indwelling Christ mind, and so change the conditions about us. This is what our spiritual tools can do for us. Even when we feel like the monkey mind is in charge, if we continue to practice our principles, it will strengthen a subconscious part of us that is holding us up even when we don't realize it. The reality is that the desire of the universe is much, much stronger than any doubts we might have about what is or isn't possible. And when we acknowledge the infinite wisdom of the universe and the limitless strength it has to bring that desire to fruition, we claim that strength, that power for ourselves. So going back to this song, Amy still had a long road to rehabilitation after the birth, and the next day I was on my way home to pick up some supplies, take the dog out, and I put on this Ben Rector album that we had been jamming out to, and it begins with this song, and it's not long before I find myself in tears listening to these words. Mind you, my daughter has just been born, and this is what I hear. Out of thin air, you appeared in my life. Like a burst of technicolor in a world of black and white, my heart was locked inside a box. You reached inside, and now I see my future when I look into your eyes. I see it. I see it. I swear I do. I see extraordinary magic in you. That is what our children can do for us, whether we're their parents or not. When something completely new and unknown to us is birthed into our lives, all of the mundanity that we might have been conditioned to believe is normal gets wiped away. And it's like we can finally see the open road that's always been before us and all of the possibilities it has for us. Do you remember that feeling when you were a child and it felt like you had all the time in the world? The day-to-day worry and judgment over whether or not we're making the most of our lives simply didn't exist because we hadn't been conditioned to think otherwise. For me, having a child brought that sensation of limitlessness back, and it reminded me that it's always been available to me because as we know, the truth of our being is that we are limitless. So thank God for the example that we have in our children. And here's the other thing. As I've listened to this song over the years, I've come to realize something very important. And if you take away anything, one thing from this message today, I hope it's this. This feeling of unconditional love that a parent has for their child is meant to be a firsthand example of how we are meant to love everyone. In fact, all of our most precious life experiences, be it an experience of our favorite hobby or passion, spending time with our pets, and of course, being with our loved ones, it's all pointing us towards universal, unconditional love of all life. So I want to explore this with you for just a moment. We won't go too long on this, but I want to invite you to settle into your seats, close your eyes, take a deep breath if you need it. And I want you to think of someone you love unconditionally. That no matter what they did, your love for them wouldn't change. Find yourself sinking into that feeling of comfort that only unconditional love can provide. All expectations are removed, and when you think of this person, both you and they are only love. And as you sink deeper into this feeling, remind yourself that the light that you love within this person exists in everyone and everything. Really rest in this comfort. Sink deeper still as you hold this person in your mind, this feeling of safety, security, and trust that they provide. Now, this next part might feel a little jarring. From this space, I want you to slowly shift your attention to someone you know personally whom you sometimes find difficult to love. Can you hold on to that feeling of unconditional love even as this other person comes to mind? This is what we're called to do for one another. And as we continue on, feel free to remain in this space as long as you'd like, opening your eyes when you're ready. At the end of the song, it says this: I'll keep my eyes open, awed and amazed. And if you start to doubt it, I'll remind you of the million ways I see extraordinary magic in you. That is our tool this week. When you feel challenged by someone in your life, or you see someone struggling to see their perfection, you, as an awakened being, are equipped to see them and to remind them of who they truly are. However that might look, in a way that resonates with what they need in the moment. Most of the time, it's just listening. But sometimes it can be a hug, or maybe you've been in spiritual conversation with them. It's an opportunity to say, have you tried affirmations? Can I pray with you? I know a really great place to hang out if you're free on Sunday mornings. So last month, we were blessed by, not last month, this was April, we were blessed by New Thought music minister Michael Gott and his empowering message on freedom. And at the top of his talk, he highlighted his process, which he called the boring pastor thing, which was to include a quote, 3 points, and a poem. So that night, me, Amy, and Ellie are sitting down to dinner, and I tell Ellie that Daddy's going to be doing the Father's Day talk. She very much knows what this means, because in the weeks leading up to me doing my talk, I will talk through it in the car with her when we're going to gymnastics or the pool. And she'll start to finish my sentences, and she'll start asking questions about what I'm talking about, which is just fantastic. So I tell Ellie, I said, I'd like you to help me come up with my 3 talking points. And this is what she came up with. I call this the 3 steps to the father's journey, or if you're not a father or father figure, these are the 3 steps to the creator's journey. You can look for and embrace these steps anytime you're presented with a new opportunity for growth, expansion, and change. So I asked Ellie, what's my first talking point? And she's right in it. She says, cleaning. And this is seemingly random, but this was Sunday. And our routine on Sunday, after I'm done with my work play here on campus, I will go home, put Ellie down for a nap, and Amy will start to do our meal prep for the week. After Amy's done meal prepping, I'll wash the dishes and really we call it a deep clean on the whole house to reset and prepare for the week ahead. So Ellie, it's Sunday night. Ellie's just been witnessing me in the throes of my cleaning routine, and she thinks, Daddy, you're an expert on cleaning. You can tell everyone at Unity about that on Sunday. And what immediately came to mind when she said this cleaning was the way that I felt the moment I found out I was going to be a father. When the universe said, guess what I have in store for you? And what happens to us when we're presented with these new opportunities is we see ourselves in that scenario in our best light, and our mind goes into this cleaning mode, this clearing the way, releasing anything that doesn't serve the potential of our new opportunity. This can be a long process. It can look different for anyone else. For me, it manifested in a complete change in my career over a couple of years and is in many ways the reason that I'm standing here talking to you today. It's amazing how what we once considered to be important is suddenly not even in our peripheral vision. And we can clearly see what needs to be done in order to clear the way and have the best possible experience in this new opportunity. But how do we hold on to that? And how do we move forward into manifesting and making that happen? So I said, Ellie, I get it, the cleaning phase. What's our next step? And she doesn't skip a beat. She says, sticking your head underwater and looking at fish. And I thought, I know all about that. I talked about this in April in my talk on the power of will. And my invitation was for us to be as beginners again in our lives to rediscover joy. But what does being a beginner feel like at first? Like walking into the ocean until we're in over our heads and we're trying to have this new experience, but we're underwater and we can't breathe and we can't see 2 inches in front of us because we have not yet gained the tools needed to succeed in our new role. By embracing and accepting our new situation and through our spiritual practice, we gain the tools needed to be comfortable in this new space. In this analogy, these tools become our goggles and our snorkel, and over time become our scuba gear until we can swim around freely and enjoy the beautiful fish and the fauna and everything that's there for us under the water. I have Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid in my head right now as I'm saying this. So, all right, Ellie, I get it, the cleaning phase, and now we're sticking our heads underwater. We're seeing all the beautiful fish. What is our last step? And she says, walking around and playing games at the museum. And of course, in Ellie's experience, she's talking about Golisano Children's Museum here in Naples, where they have combined fun with learning to teach kids about art and different cultures and science and astronomy, et cetera, et cetera. This is where we get to live once we've cleared the way. Once we have gained the skills needed to enjoy our experience, we now get to witness all of the exhibits that life has to offer us to show us the wonders of the universe. Wonders that are so vast, we can't even see 1% of them in a single lifetime. But what we do see is exactly what we need to discover joy on this particular journey. That is the Creator's journey as defined by our brilliant little teacher. Not bad, right? So just as we began today with jokes, I want to close with a similarly dad-inspired activity, and that's story time. My parents would read to me and my brothers and sisters before bed growing up. Some of you may have had the same experience. If not, the universe brought you here for a reason. And I want to share with you this sweet book that I love reading to my daughter. This is I'd Know You Anywhere, My Love by Nancy Tillman. Am I in a good spot, camera guys? Cool. There are things about you quite unlike any other. Things always known by your father or mother. So if you decide to be different one day, no worries. I'd know you anyway. If one day we're walking and talking, just us, when you're abracadabra, a rhinoceros, I might be surprised, but just for a while, I'd know it was you by your magical smile. If early one morning you put on your socks and declare, for today, I'm a little red fox, I'd say, my, that is quite a disguise. But I'd know it was you by the gleam in your eyes. If you were a camel, I'd know by your grin. Little pink pig, your chinny chin chin. White snowy owl, well, among other things, I'd know it was you by the flap of your snowy owl wings. Would you mind flapping them? Can you say, hoo, hoo? Thank you. Yes, without question, I would know it was you. My eyes and my ears and my arms always know from the top of your head to your tiniest toe. Wild spotted pony, that's easy, my sweet. I know it was you by the sound of your feet. If you were a bear cub, I'd know by your nose. Ringtail raccoon, your clever tiptoes. Blue-footed booby, I'd know you at first glance by your wonderful, one-of-a-kind, happy dance. And if one fine day you got bored and you said, today I'm not me, I'm a lion instead. Even if I'd never heard it before, I'd know it was you by the sound of your roar. Would you mind roaring a second or two? See, without question, I would know it was you. I know you by heart, so my heart never misses. I'd even know you by your whiskery kisses. Fox or koala, giraffe or raccoon, anything, anywhere under the moon. Whatever it is you imagine to be, I'll just be so proud. You belong to me. I'll kiss every whisker and smooth every hair. Because, child of mine, I'd know you anywhere. I'd know you anywhere. I'd know you anywhere. I'd know you anywhere. This is what we are called to do for one another. When you start to doubt it, I'll remind you of the million ways I see extraordinary magic in you. Now, You know I can't let you leave without sharing one more song. I wrote this tune for Amy a couple years ago. It was inspired by an episode of Levi Kreis's Imagine Paradise podcast. And in one episode, he talks about the soul contract. And the idea behind the soul contract is this: to imagine your soul, your God essence, prior to coming into the human experience as a member of a soul tribe. And members of these tribes will come together, they'll meet one-on-one, and they'll come to these agreements about how they will show up in each other's lives, the roles they'll play, and the spiritual lessons that they'll teach. And I thought, that's so cool. I want to write a song about it. And what came forth through me was this imagining of the love story that I share with my wife and daughter as this cycle of agreements that we've made to show up in each other's lives lifetime after lifetime, to teach the valuable lessons in unconditional love. It's a very personal song, but through listening to it, I hope you're able to reflect on all of the agreements your soul has made with those you've crossed paths with, and to be grateful for all the ways that love shows up in your lives. This is Soul Contract. Please enjoy, and happy Father's Day.
I have heard it said, you only get one life, just as said it turns around the sun. Some only get 10, others 95. Your paragraph is read and then it's done. Though I think it's true, for this me and you, and these bodies we've been living in, when this life is over, the next one begins, I'll sign that soul contract again. This one's all about coffee in the morning. The rain is sometimes pouring, but we're happy staying in. Sometimes we duke it out, at least it's never boring. A bed for two, a spirit's favorite roles it's playing. Yes, it's hard to see that dimple on your chin without demanding that it's permanent. But when the curtain's closing and the ghost light dims, I'll sign that soul contract again. I'm loving this whole dance with you and how the movements change while we remain the same. Funny that our precious baby girl has got a daddy's eyes, and that chin looks like her mom's. Every time she laughs, it lights up the world, and once she gets my dad jokes, I know she'll never stop. And how long have we waited in other lives before to see the third star in our constellation? I guess we'll find out, 'cause when the laughter ends, I'll sign that soul contract and then discover love over and over again, then sign that soul contract